The air inside the arena is thick, heavy with the collective breath of thousands of fans who know they are about to witness something historic. This is not just another fight card. This is a collision of eras, a heavyweight championship battle where the stakes couldn't possibly be any higher. The path back to this gold has been long, grueling, and paved with doubt for anyone who dares to step under the bright lights of the Octagon. But pressure makes diamonds, and tonight, the pressure cooker is about to burst. When you have been at the very top of the mountain, tasted the sweet nectar of dominance, and then had to fight your way back through a sea of hungry contenders, the walk down that ramp feels different. It is familiar, yet every single second carries the weight of a new destiny. How do you change the final result? How do you ensure that when the dust settles and the lights blind your eyes, it is your hand raised in ultimate triumph? The answer has never lived in luck or last-minute inspiration. It lives in the quiet, agonizing hours of training camp. It lives in the repetition, the sweat, the bruises, and the ironclad self-belief that your preparation is superior to anything the universe can throw at you. Speed, power, timing. The tools are all polished and ready. The entire arena holds its collective breath, wondering if a new king is about to be crowned, or if the throne belongs exclusively to the eternal icon. Then, the focus shifts entirely to the entranceway. You can argue until you are blue in the face about who holds the crown for influence. But on this night, the most revolutionary martial artist of all time makes his immortal walk. The crowd surges to their feet, a tidal wave of noise crashing against the cage walls as Bruce Lee steps out into the luminescence. Everybody wanted to be Bruce Lee. Generations of fighters grew up watching old footage, studying the lightning-fast inches, the unorthodox stance, and the terrifying charisma that could freeze an opponent in absolute dread before a single blow was thrown. If you wanted to fight, you wanted to move like him, strike like him, and possess that hypnotic diversity of attacks that left opponents completely helpless and guessing. Stories of old echo through the minds of analysts, defeating massive opponents by pure mastery of distance and rhythm. As the famous philosophy dictates, the true master does not fear the man who has practiced 10,000 different kicks once. He fears the man who has practiced one single kick 10,000 times. That philosophy is walking down the aisle right now, embodied in flesh, bone, and decades of distilled martial arts evolution. The cameras pan across the Octagon, capturing the intense, unblinking focus in the eyes of the champion. There is no nervous twitch, no wasted motion, just total, meditative calm amidst the roaring chaos of a sold-out stadium. Inside the cage, the atmosphere crackles like dry timber waiting for a single spark. The official introductions await, and the legendary voice of Bruce Buffer cuts through the deafening noise, amplifying the gravity of the main event. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the moment you have all been waiting for. 5 scheduled rounds for the undisputed UFC heavyweight championship of the world. The anticipation reaches a fever pitch as the challenger is introduced first, stepping out of the blue corner with fire in his eyes, knowing this is the golden ticket, the defining moment of his professional life. But the true earthquake hits the stadium when the red corner erupts, introducing the reigning, defending, undisputed UFC heavyweight champion of the world, the living legend, Bruce the Dragon Lee. Referee Herb Dean steps into the center of the canvas, checking in with both warriors, reminding them of the rules, making sure everything is fair before he becomes the third man inside the battleground. Bruce Lee stands in his corner, stretching out the shoulders, loosening up the hips, testing the springs in his legs. Every twitch of his muscle is a masterclass in kinetic efficiency. The referee gives the final nod, the cage door slams shut with a heavy metallic thud, and the lock clicks into place. There is no escape now, no way out of what is coming. The fighters glide toward the center circle, eyes locked onto each other like apex predators, sizing up their territory. The referee steps back, his arm sweeps down to signal the start, and the countdown to absolute warfare begins. Right now. The referee's arm drops, and the air in the building is instantly sliced apart as round 1 explodes into motion without a second of hesitation. There is no feeling out process, no cautious circling to test the waters. Bruce Lee bursts forward with a terrifying display of pure, unadulterated speed, firing off combinations that defy human reaction times. It is almost impossible to replicate this kind of velocity in a training camp. Fighters can study the tape for months, hire the best sparring partners available, and try to mimic those unique angles. But talking about it in a gym and standing across from it in the blinding lights of the Octagon are two entirely different universes. Lee closes the distance in the blink of an eye, utilizing every fraction of space to pepper his opponent with blindingly fast footwork and razor-sharp strikes. Before the challenger can even settle into his rhythm, a massive knee flies straight up the middle, finding its mark with a sickening thud against the head. The crowd gasps as a follow-up kick and a devastating elbow crash into the guard. Lee doubles up on his jab, snapping the challenger's head back with sniper-like precision. And just like that, barely 60 seconds into the opening round, all tactical game plans are completely thrown out the window. This is no longer a chess match. It is a full-on, backyard street brawl disguised as a championship fight. Both men had promised the fans before the bout that they would stand in the center of the cage and trade leather. But deep down, a lot of people doubted they would actually follow through when the heavy punches started flying. Right now, those skeptics are eating their words. This is giving serious flashbacks to the legendary wars of the past, where fighters left every ounce of their soul on the canvas. The challenger realizes he cannot just stand and box with a master of angles without paying a heavy price, so he changes tactics in a flash. Dropping his level with explosive power, he shoots in for a high-amplitude double-leg takedown. It is fast, clean, and executed with desperate determination. He drives his shoulder into Lee's hip and dumps him onto the canvas with a thunderous thud. The arena roars, waiting to see if the ground game will neutralize the striker. But staying down is simply not in the dictionary for a fighter of Lee's caliber. Utilizing incredible core strength and instinctive hip movement, Lee immediately neutralizes the offense, scrambles with lightning speed, and pops right back up to his feet before the challenger can even settle into a dominant control position. Back on the feet, the pace refuses to slow down for even a microsecond. They meet right back in the center of the pocket, trading heavy right hands that miss by mere millimeters, generating wind that you can almost feel from the front row. Lee resets, slides half an inch to the side, and unleashes a crunching right hand that snaps his opponent's head backward. The reach advantage of the challenger becomes a factor at moments, landing straight punches like a built-in rangefinder, but Lee's counter-striking is just too fluid, too overwhelming to ignore. If you try to box this guy, you are walking straight into a buzzsaw. Then, the dynamic of the fight shifts with a single, brutal exchange. A stray punch or a sharp elbow catches Lee flush on the bridge of the nose. Instantly, crimson begins to leak, turning a great fight into a bloody spectacle. Blood smears across Lee's face, but instead of backing down, the sight of it only seems to ignite a deeper fire inside him. The strikes are coming fast and furious from both sides now, neither man willing to take a single backward step, neither man showing a shred of fear. The challenger senses an opening and pours on the pressure, landing a massive head kick that echoes through the entire arena. Lee absorbs the blow, stumbles slightly, but shakes it off like an absolute warrior, firing back with a ferocious left hand that halts the challenger's advance. With under a minute left on the clock in round one, the entire focus of the fight zeroes in on that freshly opened cut on Lee's face. The challenger knows that opening it wider is his best ticket to victory, targeting the bridge of the nose with calculated precision to bring the doctor into the conversation. The final 60 seconds of the round turn into an absolute highlight reel of violence. Combinations fly like machine gun fire, hooks to the body, uppercuts splitting the guard, and knees driving into the midsection to drain whatever gas tank the opponent has left. The horn finally sounds to signal the end of round one, and the entire stadium erupts into a deafening roar of disbelief and admiration. Both fighters walk back to their corners covered in sweat and blood, chest heaving, knowing they just delivered one of the single greatest rounds of entire combat sports history this year. The cutman scrambles into Lee's corner with frantic energy, working desperately to patch up the bridge of the nose before the bell rings for round two, because everyone in the building knows that the very first solid strike in the next stanza could rip that wound wide open all over again. The stool is pulled away before the fighters can even catch their breath. The second round bell sounds like a sharp gunshot, echoing through the rafters as both men charge right back into the center of the cage with zero regard for self-preservation. The right hand from the challenger just barely whistles past Lee's ear, missing by a fraction of an inch, but the response is instantaneous. Lee fires back with a lightning-fast roundhouse kick that cracks hard against the ribs, followed immediately by a soaring Superman punch that forces the challenger to instantly raise his guard in panic. It is a masterclass in turning defense into offense in the blink of an eye, a seamless transition that only a true martial arts grandmaster could execute under this brutal level of physical fatigue. The output of strikes in this second stanza simply defies belief. Most heavyweights would be slowing down by now, dragging their feet, gasping heavily for air after a blistering opening 5 minutes. But not these two. They push a pace that looks utterly superhuman, keeping up a relentless volume of punches, kicks, and close-range combat that leaves the commentators shaking their heads in sheer disbelief. Lee's cardio looks like something out of a sci-fi movie, reminding everyone of the greatest volume punchers in combat sports history, fighters who can push a furious tempo all night long without ever letting up. He has clearly put in the grueling, painful work in the training room, and it shows with every single step, every single pivot, and every single combination he unleashes upon his adversary. Then, a massive opening appears in the pocket. Lee slips inside the guard with incredible anticipation, sights his target, and detonates a straight shot right down the pipe that finds the challenger's chin flush. The opponent's eyes roll back for a split second, his knees buckle under the sheer impact, and the entire arena collectively holds its breath. This is the moment, the time to go find the kill shot, the finishing blow that every elite fighter dreams of landing when their opponent is hurt and vulnerable. You cannot back off here. You cannot take your time or give the other guy a single second to recover his wits. Lee knows this rule better than anyone, swarming forward like a shark, smelling blood in the water, unleashing a flurry of heavy hooks and a crushing elbow that rattles every tooth in the challenger's head. The fight has officially crossed the line from a competitive championship bout into a legendary, historic war. Neither man wanted to take a backward step before the first bell even rang, and now, trapped in the fiery furnace of the Octagon, they are literally beating the life out of each other with every ounce of strength they possess in their bodies. It is brutal, it is beautiful, and it is everything fight fans live for. But beneath the raw violence of the strikes, a critical storyline is rapidly unfolding right before everyone's eyes. That nasty cut on the bridge of Lee's nose, patched up so desperately by the cut man just moments ago, has ripped wide open again under the heavy impact of the latest punching exchange. Blood begins to flow freely down his face once more, painting a crimson mask across his intense features. The challenger instantly recognizes the golden opportunity and adjusts his entire strategy to target that specific vulnerability. Every time they clinch or trade blows on the inside, those punches find the damaged tissue, making the gap wider and the bleeding much heavier. Yet, even with blood blurring his vision and dripping steadily into his eyes, Lee refuses to break his mental focus. He lowers his center of gravity, turns his entire body into a vicious uppercut that catches the challenger square on the jaw and sends visible shockwaves through the canvas. The power generation is purely mechanical, a perfect alignment of hips, core, and fist that turns a standard punch into a devastating knockout weapon. The crowd is completely unglued, screaming themselves hoarse as the fighters trade heavy leather with reckless abandon. If you are not a professional fighter, the thought of standing directly in front of someone throwing shots with that kind of malicious intent is terrifying. But these warriors lean right into the storm without flinching. Lee delivers his patented front kick, a picture-perfect piston of a strike that snaps straight into the midsection and travels upward with terrifying force. One more perfect placement like that, and the fight could be over right then and there. It is an absolute miracle of human endurance that the challenger is still standing upright on his own 2 feet after taking a blow of that magnitude. Terrifyingly unpredictable third round. With under a minute left on the clock in the second round, the intensity dials up even further. They exchange punches over the top, trading blow for blow in a phone booth-style brawl that has the fans standing on their chairs. Lee gets tagged again with a clean straight right that rocks him back momentarily, but his balance remains unbreakable. He fires back instantly, refusing to let his opponent dictate the final impression of the round. With 20 seconds remaining, a blazing roundhouse kick echoes through the arena like a whip cracking against leather. Then, right as the final seconds tick away, a massive knee to the body drives all remaining oxygen out of the challenger's lungs, bringing a thunderous end to another brutally punishing round. The horn sounds, and the corner teams rush into the cage like emergency responders, swarming their fighters as the severe damage on the face takes center stage under the bright lights, setting the stage for a terrifyingly unpredictable third round. The stool scrapes violently across the canvas as the corner team pulls it away in a blur of frantic motion. There is no time to rest, no time to catch a deep, relaxing breath, and no time to dwell on the pain. The physical toll of the first 2 brutal rounds is written all over the faces, bodies, and heavy breathing of both warriors, but the fire burning inside their chests refuses to extinguish. The crowd is already back on their feet, leaning over the railings, realizing with absolute certainty that the judges' scorecards are going to remain completely untouched tonight. A fight of this magnitude, of this sheer, unadulterated brutality, is simply not going to see the final bell of the championship rounds. Someone is falling before this stanza ends, and everyone in the building can feel the heavy electricity in the air. The referee shouts the command, and round 3 explodes into motion with the ferocity of a wild beast breaking free from its cage. There is no cautious circling, no resetting of the pace. They meet instantly in the center of the canvas, refusing to give an individual inch of ground. Lee fires a blinding, lightning-fast combination that snaps the challenger's head back with terrifying accuracy. The opponent's chin is visibly wobbled, his legs turning to wobbly jelly for a split second as he absorbs the full, devastating force of a clean, straight right hand right down the pipe. He is hurt, badly hurt, and anyone watching can see that he simply cannot take much more of this relentless, calculated punishment without collapsing entirely under the pressure. Lee does not let up for a single millisecond. He knows the golden rule of championship fighting. When you have a dangerous opponent cornered, you do not back off or give them space to recover. You step forward and finish the job. The left hand has been a sharp, deadly weapon all night long, and now it finds its target with sickening regularity, splitting the guard like an axe cutting through dry wood. But the offensive assault isn't just coming upstairs. True to his elite tactical approach, Lee has systematically invested in a brutal body attack throughout the entire contest, and those heavy investments are finally paying off in a massive way. Every time a heavy hook or a driving knee slams into the ribs, the challenger's arms drop a fraction of an inch lower, desperate to protect his aching midsection. That momentary lapse in defensive coverage is all the opening a master striker needs to change the course of history. Visible damage spreads across the challenger's body like a dark map of destruction, heavy bruising blooming underneath the elbows and across the ribs where the relentless kicks have landed. Every time a strike connects with the torso, a collective groan echoes through the arena from the fans, watching the sheer physical punishment unfold. Even seasoned veterans sitting cageside are wincing, gripping their seats in absolute disbelief at the level of durability being displayed on both sides of the octagon. This is no longer just a technical mixed martial arts match. It is a primal test of human will, an unforgettable war of attrition where the only currency that matters is heart, toughness, and the absolute willingness to walk through fire to claim the ultimate prize. The commentary team is losing their minds cageside, shouting into their microphones as history unfolds right before their eyes. We are witnessing an instant classic, a back-and-forth masterpiece where both fighters have stood mere inches away from being knocked out cold multiple times, only to drag themselves back from the brink through pure adrenaline and competitive fury. Lee mixes up his attacks with an artistic brilliance that leaves everyone spellbound. Low kicks, snapping jabs, vicious elbows, and high-impact strikes that flow together like water in a rushing river. You cannot stay upright against this kind of offensive variety unless you possess the soul of an absolute titan. The tension in the arena reaches a deafening crescendo, every single heartbeat synchronized with the ticking clock as the final, fateful moments of this legendary round begin to close in. The final act of this extraordinary battle begins to unfold in a flash of pure, unbridled instinct. Everything that has happened over the past 2.5 grueling rounds, the sweat, the blood, the thunderous collisions, and the relentless pacing, has all been leading up to this exact, microscopic fraction of time. There is no more room for error, no more strategies to test, and no more energy left in reserve. Both men are operating entirely on raw heart, driven by an unyielding desire to walk out of that cage as the absolute master of the universe. Lee recognizes that the target has finally revealed itself. Amidst the chaos of flying punches and heavy breathing, the challenger's defensive guard drops by a mere fraction of an inch. Just enough, just wide enough for a grand master of striking to spot the opening. It is the moment every fighter trains a lifetime to find. the intersection of opportunity and absolute execution, where destiny is written into reality. With blinding speed that defies the heavy fatigue in his muscles, Lee winds up and unleashes a gorgeous, picture-perfect finishing strike straight down the pipe. The impact echoes through the entire arena like a gunshot, drowning out the roar of thousands of screaming fans. The shot connects flush on the chin with devastating, pinpoint accuracy, transferring every single ounce of kinetic energy into the target. The challenger's eyes roll back instantly, his limbs turning to absolute water as the lights go out. There is no recovery from a blow delivered with that kind of immaculate timing and ferocious power. As his body begins to buckle, falling backward toward the canvas, the referee, Herb Dean, reacts with lightning speed, diving in to wave his arms and officially halt the contest before any unnecessary damage can be inflicted. The stadium erupts into an absolute earthquake of noise, a tidal wave of sheer disbelief and ecstatic celebration crashing against the cage walls. The clock stops officially at 1 minute and 54 seconds of the third round. The war is over, but the echo of what just transpired will live on in combat sports history forever. Bruce Lee stands victorious in the center of the canvas, chest heaving, arms raised to the heavens, as the crimson mask of battle covers his face like war paint. He does not celebrate with wild, arrogant leaps. Instead, his expression remains calm, focused, and deeply respectful, embodying the true philosophy of a martial arts master who has conquered the ultimate mountain once again. The cornermen rush into the cage, lifting him up, shouting words of pure admiration and disbelief into the electric air. Moments later, the legendary voice of Bruce Buffer cuts through the fading cheers, commanding the attention of the entire world inside the arena and millions watching across the globe. The microphone comes up to his lips, and the iconic announcement rings out with absolute authority. Ladies and gentlemen, referee Herb Dean has called a stop to this contest at 1 minute and 59 seconds of the third round, declaring the winner by knockout, and still, the undisputed UFC heavyweight champion of the world, Bruce the Dragon Lee. The roar that follows is deafening, a fitting soundtrack for a performance that transcends sport and enters the realm of pure myth. The legend of Bruce Lee has done it again, delivering a masterclass in heart, speed, and undeniable skill under the brightest lights imaginable. As the championship belt is strapped securely around his waist, it is entirely clear to everyone in the building that we have just witnessed something truly timeless, a prime, flawless display from a martial artist whose legacy will echo down through the ages, long after the canvas has been cleared and the stadium lights finally go dark.